Members, we move. The Honourable Rick Parker.
Mr Chairman, I just want to pick up on a couple of points made by my colleagues, and I think they are very, very well made. I want to turn to Part 2, Section 16(1), and pick up the point that Freedom Camping Notice is published in accordance with this section if a summary of a notice in the Gazette. Well, I want to say that in all of my time as a tramper and a hunter, the very first thing we did before we did anything else, before we examined the weather forecast, did a plan, we read the Gazette. Because we knew that the Gazette was the most important part of our information requirements for going on any trip. It is a very widely circulated document and avidly read by New Zealanders every day. I'm surprised the Gazette isn't in the newspaper awards as one of the most widely circulated documents. Let's face it, this publication is, as far as the public is concerned, publishing in secret. It's a secret publication. How many New Zealanders have ever read the Gazette? I would ask how many parliamentarians have ever read the Gazette. The Minister says she's read the Gazette. I wanted to ask her what was on page 2 of today's publication. I bet she cannot tell me. Look, let's be honest with it. Most people look at it as a quaint document that no one's ever heard of. So to publish it in the Gazette is in actual fact to have a decision of the old-fashioned Star Chamber. It's in secret. It's a closed society. No one will know about it. But anyway, to make sure that people have some notice, they then go on, and the writers of this legislation, it's hilarious, go on to say that it's going to be published in the following papers: Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch and Dunedin. Well, everybody knows that they are the papers that go to all of the areas of New Zealand which are camping areas. Well, how much freedom camping's done in the city of Auckland? How much freedom camping's done in the city of Wellington? I would say next to zero. So not only are we going to have a publication for documents in secret, we're going to have publications and documents which are completely irrelevant to the places where people go freedom camping. But it gets even better. I couldn't believe this. The third option put up by the drafters of this legislation said that the publisher of the Director General is satisfied that the notice is of local or regional interest only, and a newspaper or newspapers circulated throughout the locality. Well, that means effectively that it will never ever be published, because there is no place in New Zealand where freedom camping can be undertaken which is only, exclusively of interest to the people in that area. Take, for example, if we're going to have a publication about freedom camping on the West Coast, it would be impossible to argue that it was of interest only to people on the West Coast, because the people of the West Coast live there. They've got a house. They're never going to go freedom camping there. Freedom camping would be of interest on the West Coast to people who live in Auckland. But because it has of interest to Auckland people, it cannot be published in the local paper, because it's of interest outside of the West Coast. So by logic and definition, the Director General cannot publish it in the local paper, because something's going to happen on the West Coast of South Island is of interest to the whole of New Zealand. And because it's of interest to the whole of New Zealand, it is not of interest only to West Coasters, it's of interest to all New Zealanders. So by definition, the man or the woman who's the Director General cannot publish it in the local paper. So what do we have as a notification? We have a notification processed by the Gazette, which is read by nobody. It's a publication in secret. We have a publication in newspapers which are irrelevant, completely irrelevant to the areas in which they're published. And then we have a clause which means it's impossible for the Director General to justify publishing it in a local paper, because it is not of interest only to those people in that area, it's of interest to people across the whole country. But this is a nonsense. And then we get back to the other point made very well by Phil Twyford, that the 11A, the bylaw, must not absolutely prohibit freedom camping. Well, there's an easy way to get around that. Easy way. Just simply have a small part of the council district set as a freedom camping area. It could be the council backyard, which has a big fence around it and is locked, so people can't get into it. But as long as it's designated as a freedom camping area, then it justifies the council being able to have the whole of its district wiped out. Because The member shakes her head, but she has not thought of the inventiveness of local council. Mr Chairman. So what we have now is a freedom camping bill that a council, if it is hostile to freedom camping, and there may be some, hostile to freedom camping, they will designate an area which is so hostile to freedom campers and say that's the freedom camping area. It effectively means that they then have an area. It can be 0.5% of the area available. It can be 0.1%. But as long as they have one area available, they say they have not absolutely prohibited freedom camping. There just has to be an exception to prove the rule. It's not a percentage. Just one exception justifies them saying that we have not absolutely prohibited freedom camping. But on the other side of it, let's have it. The council makes the decision. Who is going to be able to challenge the council? So the council makes a decision to designate one minor, small, inconsequential, hostile area to freedom campers. The power rests with the council, because there's a freedom camper who turns up, gets a $200 fine, then goes through the council's bylaws, see that they've done all the things, they go back and have read the Gazette, made sure they did that before they went, gone through all the back issues of New Zealand Herald before they left to go to the South Island, and made sure they checked all the public notices, found out all the information they had, but missed it somehow, get themselves there, and they are then confronted with this. Are they going to be the people who take the council to, firstly, the District Court, I presume, and if they fail there, go to the High Court, Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court, exercising all their legitimate options? Because let's face it, councils are litigious. If they lose, they will appeal. So we've got a freedom camper who's got a bill for $200 for camping, having to try and overturn the council's policy decisions to go all the way to the Supreme Court because the weight of bureaucratic ease will be with the council. There is no balance in this, and I find this extraordinary, coming from a national party who pushes themselves forward to the public as the party of freedom. The party of freedom, the party of choice. This is a party who lauds itself as a party of freedom and about the party of New Zealand and protecting New Zealand territory. What a load of bumpkin. What they have set up, and this is a piece of legislation which ensures that the information is held in secret, is published in the Gazette or in a paper which is irrelevant to where the freedom campers are. It's a publication that you cannot put in the local paper because I've said, it has to be of interest only to the people in that area. If people outside the area are interested in it, it can't be published. And then it says that it has to only have a small aspect of its council which is available to freedom camping, and therefore it has not absolutely banned freedom camping. Only has to have one example to prove it wrong. It could be beside the rubbish dump. It could be beside, I don't know, the sewage station, the sanitation, the oxidisation ponds. So here we are, as a place that the freedom campers can have beside the oxidisation ponds, and because they've got it, they haven't banned it absolutely. They can find all sorts of hostile places. A mill that works 24 hours a day, a big sawmill going 24 hours a day, completely hostile to freedom campers, but as long as they put a sign up saying, freedom campers welcome, they have not absolutely banned it. This is a bill that goes far too far. There is no balance or logical reason for this, and I think the process of consultation has been abysmal. And this from a party that says they are there for individual freedoms and individual rights. What a load of rubbish. This shows the paradox in the National Party. They talk about being anti-nanny state, then they introduce nanny state policies. They talk about getting the government out of your lives and they put more government on people. They talk about having less bureaucracy, and well, we've got more bureaucracy. And in fact, they're taking people's freedoms away by stealth and by orders of that well-read paper, the Gazette. I can't believe it. It's impossible to believe.